You know the story, don't you? Jacob and Laban, the whole biblical family drama. It feels like a tale we've heard countless times.
Absolutely. Very familiar.
But what if that familiar narrative is actually, well, a doorway into some of the most ancient, profoundly human customs and beliefs, kind of like a hidden anthropological treasure map woven right into a family saga?
Precisely. And that's what we're doing today, taking a real deep dive into those incredible layers of meaning.
Okay.
We're focusing specifically on Part 2, Chapter 8 of Sir James George Frazer's monumental Folklore in the Old Testament.
Ah, Frazer. Right.
Yes. And Frazer, with his unparalleled ability to connect the dots across cultures and millennia, he reveals how this specific biblical account, which he calls the Covenant on the Cairn, is just so much more than a family feud.
So our mission here really is to get past the surface story. We want to understand the ancient customs, the core human psychology, and the surprisingly consistent beliefs sort of baked into this text, all through Frazer's lens.
Exactly. It's like a shortcut to some really profound anthropological insights.
Sounds fascinating. So where does Frazer start us off? With Jacob's decision to leave.
Yes, the narrative begins with Jacob having served his father-in-law Laban for many, many years. He's built up considerable wealth, sheep and goats.
Right, the famous speckled and spotted flock.
That's the one. And Frazer, always quite unsentimental in his analysis, suggests Jacob's decision to finally return to his homeland wasn't driven by simple nostalgia or homesickness.
No, not at all. Frazer just cuts right to it, doesn't he? He calls it a calm calculation of profit.
He really does.
Jacob, he argues, had basically drained the old man as dry as a squeezed lemon. Harsh words.
Very direct. Frazer suggests it was simply high time to transfer his talents to a more profitable market.
It paints a very pragmatic, maybe even ruthless picture of Jacob's motives. And so, to avoid any messy family arguments over all this wealth he'd accumulated.
A discreet exit was needed. A moonlight flitting, as Frazer puts it.
Okay, but he couldn't just vanish. He had wives, Leah and Rachel, Laban's daughters.
Right. This strategic departure required informing them. Jacob approached them, subtly. He pointed to Laban's changed attitude towards him.
Sort of making Laban the problem.
Exactly. And he attributed his own success to divine intervention, God being on his side. He even recounts this rather convenient dream where an angel specifically told him to leave.
You can almost picture him laying it on a bit thick, can't you? Maybe that twinkle in his eye Frazer hints at.
Maybe, but it seems he doesn't actually need to be that subtle. His wives, Leah and Rachel, they agreed readily. And Frazer highlights their motives as purely mercenary.
Really? Mercenary?
Yes. They openly complained that their father, Laban, had squandered their marriage price, basically their dowry, and left them with nothing.
Ah, so they felt cheated by their own father.
Precisely. So they were more than happy to turn their backs on him and go with Jacob.
Okay, and this is where Rachel adds another layer of intrigue, isn't it?
It is, demonstrating some real sharp thinking. She secretly steals Laban's household gods, the teraphim, before they leave.
Teraphim. Now, these weren't just ornaments, were they?
Oh, definitely not. Teraphim were often these small idols or figures, probably embodying ancestral spirits. Sometimes they even function almost like legal deeds for family property or inheritance rights.
So stealing them was a big deal, more than just theft.
Absolutely. Rachel likely feared these deities, these spirits, would resent and punish any injury done to their proprietor Laban. They might even affect his future prosperity or ability to, say, magically track them down.
And she did this without telling Jacob.
Yes. Crucially, she hid them without telling Jacob. Frazer speculates this was probably from a fear lest a relic of masculine conscience might induce him to restore the stolen deities.
Huh. A little dig at Jacob's potential conscience there. So, quite the cunning move by Rachel.
Very much so. So with the teraphim secretly packed away, Jacob and his whole caravan set off.
And their timing was good, wasn't it? Laban was busy.
Yes, strategic timing. Laban was away at a sheep-shearing festival, which gave them a full 2-day head start.
But a caravan like that, sheep, goats, women, children, it wouldn't exactly be speeding along.
No, very slow progress. So when Laban eventually got word and discovered they were gone, well, he wasn't about to just let them disappear with his daughters and potentially his gods.
He decides to pursue them.
Immediately.
Oh.
He gathered his kinsmen and embarked on this determined 7-day forced march. Quite the effort.
7 days. He must have been furious. And he catches them.
He does. Finally catches up with the fugitives in the beautiful wooded mountains of Gilead, which of course leads to this big confrontation.
I bet that was tense.
Oh, absolutely. Laban starts off with these angry reproaches. He accuses Jacob not only of stealing his gods, the teraphim, but also of carrying off his daughters as if they were captives of the sword. Very dramatic language.
But Jacob genuinely doesn't know about the gods, does he?
No, he's completely in the dark about Rachel's actions. So he retorts with this vehement indignation, flatly denies any knowledge of stolen gods.
And he even makes a pretty bold offer, right?
Extremely bold. He dares Laban to search all his baggage and even offers to put the thieves to death if the deities were found. High stakes.
So Laban takes him up on it. He searches.
He does. He ransacks the tents, goes through everything. But of course, finds nothing.
Because Rachel's got them hidden. How did she manage that?
Very cleverly. She'd hidden the images in her camel's palanquin, or saddle seat, and when Laban comes to her tent, she basically says she can't get up because, well, the manner of women is upon her.
Ah, the old time of the month excuse. Classic.
Exactly. A clever deception that plays on cultural taboos. Frazer notes she was likely laughing in her sleeve.
So Laban comes up empty-handed. How does that shift the dynamic?
Completely. Laban's failure to find the teraphim totally restores Jacob's self-confidence. He seizes the moment.
He turns the tables.
He does. He launches into this eloquent speech full of virtuous indignation. He details his years of diligent service to Laban, the hardships he endured, the unfair treatment, and insists that if it weren't for divine aid, Laban would have sent him away completely empty-handed.
You can really hear the confidence, the righteous anger coming through.
Absolutely. And Frazer sums up Jacob's shrewdness perfectly here, saying, a man would need to have a very long spoon to sup with Jacob.
That's a great line. So Laban is basically outplayed.
Completely outmatched in rhetoric and cunning. He has little to say in response. He sort of sullenly acknowledges that, yes, the daughter's children and flocks were technically his, but the fight has gone out of him. The momentum is all Jacob's.
So no more fighting. They decide to part ways peacefully.
Yes, they agreed to part in peace. And this agreement is sealed by the covenant on the Cairn.
Okay, the core of this chapter, what did that involve?
Well, they set up a large stone, like a pillar, and then gathered a heap, a cairn, of smaller stones around it.
Monument of sorts.
Exactly. And the ritual involved eating bread together. Frazer makes a point of arguing the original text suggests this meal happened on the cairn itself, which is significant for his later analysis.
Eating on the stones. Okay. And what was the point of this cairn?
It served a dual purpose, really. First, it was a physical boundary marker, a line that neither party should cross with harmful intent towards the other.
A thus far and no further kind of thing.
Precisely. And second, it was to serve as a witness between them, even when they were far apart and couldn't see each other. That's why it was named Galid in Hebrew and Jigar Sahadutha in Aramaic, both meaning heap of witness.
A heap of witness. Interesting. So the covenant is sealed. Jacob's happy.
Jacob is well content with the result of his diplomacy, as Frazer puts it. Laban, maybe less satisfied, is still silenced.
Okay, so that's the story. But this is where Frazer really starts to unpack the deeper meaning, right? The anthropology behind the cairn.
Exactly. This is where his genius shines. He argues the cairn wasn't just a memorial of an agreement. It actually symbolized a deep, mutual suspicion and distrust between Jacob and Laban.
Suspicion, not reconciliation.
Well, yes, reconciliation on the surface. But Frazer sees the need for the cairn as evidence of underlying distrust. It functioned as a material guarantee, a kind of deed or document in stone that would literally testify against whichever one of them broke the agreement.
Oh, document in stone. I like that. But how could stones testify?
This is the truly fascinating part. Frazer posits the cairn wasn't conceived merely as inert stones. It was thought of as having a personality, a powerful spirit or deity.
The stone heap itself was alive, or housed a spirit.
Essentially, yes. This spirit would keep a watchful eye on both the covenanters. It wasn't just a passive symbol. It was an active observer, a guarantor.
And is there evidence for that in the text?
Frazer points directly to Laban's words. The Lord watched between me and thee, when we are absent one from another. God is witness betwixt me and thee. The place was also called Mizpah, meaning watchtower. It highlights this role as an active, conscious guardian.
Wow. So the stones themselves are imbued with a kind of awareness, a power to watch and witness.
That's the interpretation. And this idea connects directly to other rude stone monuments found all over that region, especially beyond the Jordan River, including Mount Gilead itself where this happened.
Are there stone structures? Like Stonehenge, maybe? Or something different?
More like dolmens and standing stones. Canon Tristram, a 19th century explorer Frazer cites, observed numerous dolmens in Moab, near Gilead. He described them as these large, rough structures, typically 3 upright stones, making a sort of box, maybe 8 feet square, with a fourth big flat stone on top as a roof.
Okay, so quite substantial. And common.
Very common.
Yeah.
He said he might see over 20 in a single morning's ride, usually on rocky hillsides. And interestingly, local Arab herdsmen still use them as shelters or stations.
Did Tristram know what their original purpose was?
Well, he was quite sure they weren't tombs, not sepulchral sites. He even came up with a theory about 3 distinct prehistoric tribes living in the area based on where you found stone circles versus dolmens versus cairns. He thought each group had different customs tied to these stones.
Fascinating. And what do modern locals think they are?
Tristram mentioned that the modern Arabs often attributed the dolmens to the work of jinns or spirits, which in a way echoes that ancient idea of power residing in these structures.
It definitely hints at some fundamental power being attributed to stones.
And Frazer argues that power stems from a core belief, the principle of sympathetic magic.
Sympathetic magic. How does that apply to stones?
The idea is that the inherent qualities of the stones, their stability, their weight, their permanence, their solidity, could be magically transferred to people or actions. So performing a ritual with or on stones could give that same stability and weight to a covenant or an oath.
Okay, so the stone's nature influences the agreement made upon it.
Exactly. And Frazer shows this isn't just some obscure idea from the ancient Near East. You find this principle all over the place.
Like where?
Well, take the ancient Norse, as described by Saxo Grammaticus. Their kings would literally stand on specific stones when proclaiming votes or making decrees. The belief was that the steadfastness of the stones would magically transfer to their rule, making it lasting and stable.
Standing on stones for a lasting rule.
Or there's a myth from Java about a Raja who gained immense strength by resting on a mountain, consciously trying to become like a stone himself.
Absorbing the stone's strength.
Right. And look at marriage ceremonies. In the traditional Brahmin marriage in India, the groom leads the bride around the sacred fire, and each time they circle, he makes her tread on a millstone.
A millstone. Why?
While she treads on it, he says specific words. Tread on this stone, like a stone be firm, overcome the enemies, tread the foes down. It's a core part of the ceremony called Saptapadi, the 7 steps, and it explicitly aims to instill constancy and firmness, like the stone, into the marriage.
Oh, that's very direct.
It is. And Brahmin boys undergo a similar ritual during their initiation ceremony, treading on a stone for firmness.
Any other examples? This is really widespread.
Oh, yes. Among the Kukis of northern Kachar, in Assam, a marrying couple stands together and places 1 foot each on a large stone in the village center. A headman sprinkles them with water and basically exhorts them to embody the stone's virtues: permanence, stability.
A shared footing on the stone for a stable union.
Exactly. Or the Cairn caste in Madura, South India. They decorate a grinding stone, treat it almost like a deity, and invoke blessings for a strong male child, specifically praying the child will be as strong and robust as the stone itself.
Linking the child's strength to the stones.
And even in Madagascar, Frazer notes a custom of burying a special stone under a main house post or threshold. The idea: to guard the inhabitants against the instability of earthly bliss. The stone provides permanence against fleeting happiness.
These examples really drive home how pervasive this belief is that stones possess qualities like stability and strength that can be transferred through ritual contact.
Precisely. It shows it's not just an isolated quirk, but a deep-seated pattern in human thought across cultures. And this principle naturally extends to the act of taking oaths.
Makes sense. If stones lend stability, you'd want that for an oath.
Right. The widespread custom of taking oaths while physically interacting with stones standing on them, touching them, reflects this deep belief that the stone's solidity would somehow compel the oath to be kept, make it binding.
Are there specific historical examples of oath-taking stones?
Plenty. In ancient Athens, the 9 chief magistrates, the archons, had to stand on a particular stone in the marketplace when swearing their oath of office, promising to rule justly.
Standing on the stone to make the oath solid.
Exactly. Or in Scotland, on the island of Iona, there were famous black stones. Disputes were often settled by swearing upon them. They were considered decisive. King MacDonald even granted land charters by oaths sworn on these stones. It led to a common saying: "I have freedom to swear this matter upon the black stones," meaning I'm absolutely certain and willing to stake everything on this.
So the stones held immense weight, literally and figuratively.
They did. There was another famous oathing stone on the island of Flata in the Hebrides, a round blue one. And in Lairg, in Sutherlandshire, they had the plighting stone, a stone with a hole in it. People would seal bargains, pledge their faith, or plight their troth, get engaged by grasping hands through the hole in the stone.
Wow, physically joined through the stone. That's powerful symbolism.
Isn't it? And we see similar practices beyond Europe. Among the Bogos people in eastern Africa, disputes were settled at a designated stone. The person making the oath would stand on the stone, and curses would be called down upon them if they lied, with the crowd shouting, "Amen."
The stone becomes the focal point for truth and consequence.
Yes. Or the Akamba people in British East Africa, they took very solemn oaths before something called a kititido, possibly an idol or sacred object associated with a place, which was believed to supernaturally kill perjurers. And crucially, while taking the oath, they placed their heels on 2 out of 7 specific stones laid out for the purpose.
Contact with the stones is essential even when there's a separate object of power.
It seems so. And in Assam, among the Tongkols and Garos tribes, they used specific, often peculiarly shaped stones for their most solemn oaths. They'd salute the stone, call on deities like Mahadeva, or sometimes swear upon meteoric stones, fallen stars.
Meteoric stones?
Oh.
Wow!
Yes, and the Gara oath on a meteoric stone is particularly vivid. They'd say something like, "May Gora, the god of lightning, kill me with one of these stones if I have told a lie."
Okay, that sounds less like the stone making the oath firm and more like the stone or its associated god punishing you if you lie.
Exactly. And this brings up an important distinction Frazer makes when analyzing these stone oaths. He differentiates between 2 main aspects, or beliefs, that are often operating, sometimes simultaneously.
What are the 2 aspects?
He calls them the retributive aspect and the confirmatory aspect.
Okay, retributive sounds like punishment.
Right. In the retributive sense, the stone itself, or more often a spirit or deity associated with the stone, is believed to actively punish perjury. The Garo oath calling on the lightning god is a perfect example. Or Frazer mentions a Samoan oath, where the implication is that a divine life force within the stone will directly harm or kill the liar. That's retribution.
Got it. So what's the confirmatory aspect?
The confirmatory aspect focuses on the physical properties of the stone, its weight, its solidity, its permanence. The belief here is that these qualities are magically transferred into the person swearing the oath, or into the oath itself, making it stable, weighty, and enduring, just like the stone.
So one is about punishment after breaking the oath, the other is about magically strengthening the oath as it's made.
That's a good way to put it. And Frazer is quick to point out that in, quote, primitive thought, these distinctions weren't always sharply defined. Vagueness and confusion are characteristic, he says. So these 2 ideas, the stone as punisher and the stone as strengtheners, often blend together in practice.
Okay, that makes sense. Things aren't always neat categories in belief systems.
Not at all. But recognizing these 2 underlying principles helps us understand the richness of these rituals.
So how does Frazer apply this distinction back to Jacob and Laban's covenant on the Cairn? Does it fit both aspects?
He argues it beautifully combines both. On the one hand, you have the explicit religious appeal, the retributive potential. By solemnly calling the Cairn to be a witness and invoking God to watch between them, they are essentially treating the Cairn as a conscious entity, a Janus figure, as Frazer calls it, facing both ways, watching both parties, ready to testify or perhaps even act against a transgressor.
Okay, so that covers the witness and potential punishment angle, the retributive side.
Exactly. But then you have the act of eating the covenant meal together, potentially on the stones of the Cairn. This, Frazer argues, taps into the magical confirmatory aspect. By eating together on the stones, they're creating a sympathetic bond of union through the shared meal. But they're also likely believed to be absorbing the physical properties of the stones, their strength, their stability, their permanence, directly into themselves and into their agreement.
So they're taking in the stone's solidity to make their pact solid.
Precisely. It's both a divine witness invoked and a physical conduit for transferring stability. It's a ritual operating on multiple levels, blending the religious appeal with sympathetic magic. It's incredibly rich when you break it down like that.
It really is. That adds so much depth to just piling up some rocks.
It absolutely does. And if you still find yourself maybe a little skeptical about how profoundly people might believe the physical ground or material beneath their feet could affect the truthfulness or moral quality of an oath, Frazer includes this absolutely captivating anecdote from the historian Procopius.
Oh, what's the story?
It involves a Persian king, Perjurers, and his vassal, Arsaces, the king of Armenia, who he suspected was plotting a revolt.
Okay, standard court intrigue.
Right. Arsaces swore up and down, by all the gods, that he was completely loyal. But Perjurers wasn't convinced. So acting on a tip from his court magicians, he devised this incredibly clever ruse.
What did he do?
He invited Arsaces to his royal pavilion. But before Arsaces arrived, he had the floor covered in muck, in earth. Crucially, one half of the pavilion floor was covered with Persian earth and the other half with Armenian earth.
Persian muck and Armenian muck, why?
Well, they start walking around the pavilion, talking, and Procopius reports that Arsaces' responses showed these extraordinary discrepancies depending entirely on which patch of earth he was standing on at that moment.
No way, seriously.
Yes. While standing on the Persian earth, Arsaces would swear these dreadful oaths, proclaiming he was the Persian king's most faithful slave, totally subservient.
Okay, saying what the king wants to hear.
But the instant his feet touched the Armenian earth, his whole demeanor changed. He'd start muttering threats, boasting about the vengeance he'd take on the Persians, what he'd do when he was free.
And then back on the Persian earth.
The moment he stepped back onto the Persian muck, he'd be cringing and fawning again, swearing loyalty. The contrast was immediate and stark.
Wow, so the ground itself was dictating his truthfulness, or lack thereof.
That's exactly how Procopius presents it, and how Frazer uses it as evidence of this profound belief in the connection between place, substance, and the validity or nature of an oath. The ruse completely exposed Arsaces' treacherous intentions.
What happened to Arsaces? You can't really execute royalty easily.
No, because he is of royal blood, he couldn't be killed. Instead, King Perjurers devised a unique and rather chilling punishment. He imprisoned Arsaces for life in the Castle of Oblivion.
The Castle of Oblivion, what's that?
A place where his name was forbidden ever to be spoken again by anyone under penalty of death. His existence was to be completely erased from memory.
That is profound. A punishment fitting for someone whose very words were unstable, tied to the earth he stood on.
A very powerful illustration of the concepts Frazer's exploring.
And does this ancient connection between cairns and witnessing still exist anywhere?
Remarkably, yes. Frazer notes, and it's been observed since, that pilgrims visiting Aaron's traditional tomb on Mount Hor, in modern Jordan near Petra, still have a custom of piling up small heaps of stones.
They still build cairns. Why?
They call these stone heaps meshtad, which means witnesses. They build them as tangible evidence of vows they make there, often vows made on behalf of sick relatives back home. The cairn stands as a witness to their promise.
Wow. A direct echo of Jacob and Laban thousands of years later.
An amazing persistence of custom.
So looking back, we started with just one biblical account, Jacob and Laban, from part 2, chapter 8 of Frazer's Folklore in the Old Testament. And from there, we've really journeyed across the globe, haven't we?
We really have.
Uncovering these incredibly deep-seated, widespread human beliefs about stones, about covenants, trust, distrust, and this hidden power we seem to attribute to place and substance.
Frazer's work is just brilliant at revealing these enduring patterns in human behavior and belief. It shows how rituals that might seem simple, even primitive on the surface, can carry such profound meaning about fundamental human concerns. Things like trust, accountability, and that deep desire for permanence, for stability, in a world that always feels like it's changing.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? If ancient peoples believed the very ground beneath their feet, or the stones they touched or sat upon, could literally bind them to their word, could influence their truthfulness, what does that tell us? What does that tell us about the subtle ways we, even today, might still attribute a kind of power to our surroundings, or to the rituals we perform when we make promises? Think about courtrooms, places of worship, even just shaking hands.
That's a fascinating thought. Are we ever truly free from that subtle magic of place, or the weight of ritual, when we make our most solemn promises? Something to ponder.